You are piloting a 12,000-pound monster truck, soaring 40 feet in the air above a packed stadium of 80,000 screaming fans. The twin-screw supercharged methanol engine is screaming at full throttle, deafening even through your custom-molded helmet and communications headset. Mid-air, a sudden metal snap echoes through the steel tube frame chassis, and you realize the rear suspension bypass shock has failed, sending the truck into a dangerous nose-heavy roll. You have less than 1/10 of a second before the heavy front tires slam into the dirt. Do you stay pinned on the throttle to let the massive tire rotation bring the nose back up, or do you brace for a catastrophic rollover crash? Level 1. The Fairground Crusher. You are standing in a dusty county fairground arena at midnight, the smell of cheap fried food and exhaust fumes heavy in the air. Your paddock is a gravel patch behind a temporary wire fence, and your tools are a set of heavy socket wrenches, a sledgehammer, and a rusty bottle jack. Your budget is zero. You built your truck using a stock heavy-duty pickup truck frame, a carbureted big block engine, and a set of stiff leaf spring suspension packs. The leaf spring packs are secured with heavy steel U-bolts that you tightened by hand using a long metal cheater pipe to get enough leverage. You bolted on a set of heavy agricultural tractor tires you bought from a local farm auction. Your engine produces barely 400 horsepower, which is barely enough to move the 6-ton machine over a row of junked sedan cars. The junkyard vehicles are old, stripped of engines, transmissions, and glass, leaving only empty steel shells. The cabin is stripped, containing only a single steel seat, a stock steering wheel, and a crude roll bar you welded yourself. You start the engine, the open headers shaking the sheet metal body panels with a deafening rattle. You shift into first gear, floor the throttle, and climb onto the hood of a rusted station wagon. The leaf springs squeak and groan under the compression, and the front axle feels like it is about to snap. As the rear tires crush the roof of the second car, a loud metal bang vibrates through your seat. The main leaf on the front passenger side spring pack has sheared in half, dropping the body onto the tire. You crawl out of the truck in front of a small crowd of 200 people, knowing you have no spare parts and must weld the leaf pack back together in your garage before the next weekend show. You learn that at this level, monster trucks are crude, heavy machines that punish basic components. Level 2. The Mud Pit Racer. You have registered for a regional mud bogging event, spending your travel savings on entry fees and diesel fuel for your tow rig. The paddock is a swampy grass field, and your truck is parked next to a flatbed trailer coated in dried clay. You are practicing in a deep clay pit to learn the mechanics of maintaining momentum with 66-inch tires. The mud bog rules are strict, requiring you to stay within the designated lanes, and if a tire touches the boundary rope, you are instantly disqualified. You do not have modern nitrogen shocks or custom planetary axles. You have stock axles with welded steering joints and a crude mechanical rear steer setup controlled by an electric toggle switch on the dashboard. The electric switch is wired directly to a hydraulic solenoid valve, allowing you to steer the rear wheels independently. You are practicing throttle modulation through deep ruts. This is a delicate technique where you must keep the engine revving high to clear the tread patterns of the massive tires while avoiding wheel spin that digs the truck into a hole. After several aggressive runs through the clay, the engine temperature gauge spikes to 250 degrees. The radiator is coated in a thick layer of wet mud, blocking all airflow. You must shut the engine down immediately, letting the block cool before the head gasket blows. You spend the afternoon using a pressure washer to clean the radiator fins in the mud, realizing that keeping the engine cool is a constant battle in this sport. You learn to read the depth of the mud through the feedback of the steering wheel. Level 3. The Regional Freestyle Novice. You are entering your first local arena competition, competing against 15 other independent drivers. You have upgraded your truck with a custom-built tube frame chassis, a mid-mounted engine setup, and a basic set of nitrogen-charged shocks. The engine is mounted in the center of the frame to distribute weight evenly, reducing the chance of nose-heavy lawn dart landings. Your budget is tight, relying on local sponsors to pay for fuel and transport. You spend your evenings adjusting the nitrogen pressure in the shock reservoirs, trying to find a balance between jump landing support and chassis stability. You check the steel sway bars and the 4-link suspension rods, ensuring the rod ends are greased. The arena is a tight dirt oval lined with old scrap cars, small dirt ramps, and concrete barriers. You are practicing jump landings, learning how to manage the rebound of the massive tires. If you land too hard, the truck will bounce uncontrollably, throwing you into the concrete wall. If you land too soft, the suspension will bottom out, cracking the differential housing. During a high jump off the center launch ramp, the truck lands sideways on the left rear tire. There is a loud crack as the rear steering cylinder mounts tear off the axle housing. The rear wheels snap to the right, steering the truck into a concrete barrier at low speed. The fiberglass body is shattered, hanging in pieces from the steel frame. You do not have a spare axle housing. You must find a local welder in the arena paddock who can weld the steel plates back onto the housing. You spend the night under the truck, breathing in welding fumes, learning that every landing is a gamble with suspension geometry. Level 4. The Arena Wheelie Master. You have qualified for the Freestyle bracket, which means you must perform stunts to impress the judges. The arena is small, and you cannot build enough speed for massive jumps. You must focus on technical tricks, specifically the Sky Wheelie. This is a stunt where you launch the truck off a steep ramp at slow speed, tapping the brakes mid-air to bring the nose vertical, then riding on the rear tires. You line up at the start line, the engine idling with a loud, supercharged whine. The automatic transmission is hot, the fluid boiling in the cooler lines under the floorboard. The transmission tunnel sits right next to your leg, radiating heat that feels like an open oven, making fire retardant suits a necessity. The flag drops and you launch toward the vertical launch pod. As the front tires climb the ramp, you stomp on the gas, sending the front end pointing toward the ceiling. The cabin goes vertical, and you are staring directly at the arena rafters. You tap the brakes to stop the tire rotation, hoping the balance point holds. Suddenly, the truck tips past the center of gravity, falling backward toward the roof. You throw your hands inside the cab, bracing against the steering wheel as the tailgate slams into the dirt. The impact is violent, compressing your spine and shaking the steering column. The truck rolls onto its side, the engine screaming as it leaks fuel onto the dirt. The safety crew runs toward you with fire extinguishers, helping you climb out of the rollover cage. You learn that balance is a matter of inches, and mastering the rear steering lever is the only way to save a truck that is about to tip over. Level 5. The Arena Competitor. You are competing in a regional stadium tour, the final step before the professional ranks. You have built a dedicated monster truck, a fiberglass body mounted on a modern chassis, with a 1,500 horsepower supercharged engine running on pure methanol. The truck is fitted with 26-inch travel nitrogen shocks and a dual triangulated 4-link suspension system. The 4-link suspension bars are made of thick steel tubing with heavy-duty rod ends that allow the axles to twist and articulate over obstacles. The competition is intense, and the arena is a tight dirt track with steep jumps. You are in the freestyle finals. Your competitor is a veteran driver who just performed a perfect run with a high-speed wheelie. During your run, you launch the truck off the main ramp, flying 30 feet in the air. As you land, a loud hiss echoes from the front suspension. The bypass valve on the front passenger side nitrogen shock has failed, releasing all gas pressure. The shock collapses, dropping the front corner of the truck onto the bump stops. The steel frame slams onto the dirt with a loud clank, and the steering wheel pulls violently to the right, threatening to rip the wheel out of your hands. You must finish the remaining 60 seconds of your run with a collapsed shock. You manage the weight transfer, turning hard to the left to keep the weight off the broken corner. You complete the run, the collapsed shock scraping against the steel link arms. You win the freestyle segment, but your suspension is ruined. You learn that maintaining shock pressures is critical for landing stability. Level 6. The Exhibition Legend. You have earned your tour card, entering the National Exhibition Series. The trucks here are built to a professional standard, using high-strength steel chassis and custom planetary wheel ends. The planetary gears multiply the engine torque at the wheel hubs, reducing stress on the axle shafts. Your engine is a supercharged big block that produces 1,800 horsepower. The tires are spec BKT racing tires, providing high traction that puts extreme stress on the axles. You can no longer just bounce the truck. You must throttle out of bad landings. This requires high throttle inputs to keep the wheels spinning through the high traction of the dirt. During a high-speed racing pass, you launch the truck over the center obstacle. The landing is clean, but the sudden traction breaks the rear drive shaft. The steel shaft snaps in half, whipping against the underside of the floorboards with a loud metallic clattering. You lose all rear drive, the truck spinning out in the dirt. You tow the truck back to the paddock. Your service time is limited to 30 minutes before the freestyle round. Your crew works rapidly, using heavy impact guns to swap the drive shaft and clean the broken yoke while the announcer calls your name over the PA system. You watch the clock tick down, your hands shaking as you strap into your harness. You launch onto the track with only seconds to spare, completing your run with a fresh shaft. You realize that professional monster truck racing is a battle of quick repairs. Level 7. The Stadium Tour Qualifier. You are competing in the qualifying round of a major stadium event. The track is a massive outdoor arena with dirt hills, concrete containers, and a row of old school buses. The school buses are crushed and welded together to create a solid landing platform. You have to hit the launch ramp at exactly 32 miles per hour to clear the buses. Otherwise, you will crash directly into the side of the last vehicle. You are using a professional crew chief who stands in the center of the stadium, communicating through a radio headset. The crew chief is analyzing the track conditions, telling you which lanes have the best traction and how to adjust your tire pressure. The spotter guides your line, warning you of debris and tracking your drift angle. During your freestyle run, you must hit 3 consecutive obstacle jumps, aiming for maximum airtime. The crew chief is speaking through your headset. Line up the ramp on the left, keep the throttle pinned. Now throttle out of the landing, watch the bus stack. You adjust your throttle inputs based on his voice, managing the speed of the truck. You feel the rear tires hit the roof of the school buses, a loud crunch that vibrates through the frame. The tire pressure must be adjusted precisely. If the pressure is too high, the truck will bounce like a basketball on landing. If the pressure is too low, the tire will slip on the wheel rim, tearing the valve stem and causing an instant flat. Your crew adjusts the pressure down to 10 pounds based on the soft dirt. You learn to trust your crew chief's voice, turning your driving into a team effort. Level 8. The Freestyle Specialist. You have graduated to the premier stadium freestyle tour. You are driving a 2,000 horsepower supercharged machine. The vehicle is a custom-built exhibition truck with carbon fiber body panels, heavy-duty planetary axles, and a custom rear steering control valve. The engine uses a high-volume fuel pump to inject methanol, providing instant throttle response, When you purge the fuel lines, a cloud of white methanol mist shoots out of the side pipes with a loud roar. The cabin is equipped with automatic fire suppression nozzles aimed at the engine and fuel cell. The speed is incredible. The truck's entering the arena at over 40 miles per hour. You are testing a new rear suspension geometry. The engineers have fitted longer shock links and a custom nitrogen bypass valve designed to handle 50-foot vertical landings. The engineers use digital pressure gauges to set the nitrogen to 300 pounds, checking for leaks around the valve seals. You must test the rebound limit. You launch the truck off the highest ramp, flying 50 feet in the air. The truck goes sideways midair, the wind catching the body. As you land on the rear tires, the suspension compresses completely, the nitrogen shocks absorbing the massive force without bottoming out. The truck rebounds smoothly, the rear steering holding the line. Back in the garage, the crew downloads the telemetry data, analyzing suspension travel, shock temperatures, and frame stress. You adjust the bypass clickers to stiffen the rear rebound, preventing the truck from bouncing on hard landings. You realize that at this level, truck setup is a science of pressures. Level 9, the racing bracket finalist. You are in the final round of a major racing tournament, competing against the fastest driver on the tour. The competitor is driving a lightweight truck with a low center of gravity, known for its cornering speed. The racing course uses red and blue marker pylons to outline the tight turns of the J-hook layout. The racing bracket is a test of split-second timing. You must navigate a tight dirt course, turning around obstacles and jumping over lanes. You launch from the starting line, the supercharged engine roaring as you head toward the first corner. The hydraulic steering wheel has no mechanical connection to the wheels, leaving you with zero road feel, forcing you to drive entirely by visual cues. You use the rear steering lever to pivot the rear wheels, sliding the 6-ton truck around the tight dirt turn like a rally car. The competitor is side by side with you, their engine noise filling your cabin. You approach the crossover jump, where one truck flies over the other. You launch off the ramp, your truck flying 10 feet above his roof. The landing is hard, but you maintain throttle, the tires digging into the dirt. You slide through the final turn, using the rear steering to line up the finish line jump. You cross the finish line a bumper ahead, winning the racing bracket. The crowd is cheering, and your crew is celebrating on the radio. You learn that racing a monster truck requires absolute precision. You must manage the rear steering lever with your left hand while controlling the steering wheel with your right, balancing the massive machine on the edge of control. Level 10, the World Finals Champion. We return to the moment at the World Finals. You are soaring 40 feet in the air above the stadium floor. The supercharged engine is screaming, and the concrete floor below is a distant blur. You remember the sheared leaf springs from your amateur days and the collapsed nitrogen shocks in the mud. You keep your foot pinned to the floor, the massive tires spinning at 80 miles per hour to bring the nose of the truck back up. The suspension link holds as the rear tires slam into the dirt ramp, compressing the nitrogen shocks to their limit. The truck bounces slightly, the rear axle stepping out to the right. You rapidly toggle the rear steering lever to the left, straightening the rear wheels while maintaining throttle. The truck settles, the engine roaring as you drive out of the landing zone. You turn toward the backflip ramp, a steep shipping container placed in the center of the floor. You approach the ramp at second gear, climbing the vertical wall at full throttle. The truck launches backward, rotating in a perfect circle. You tap the brakes mid-air to stop the tire rotation, snapping the truck nose down. The rear tires hit the dirt first, absorbing the impact as the truck settles on all 4 wheels. You cross the finish line, winning the World Finals Championship. The crowd erupts, and your team is cheering over the radio. The mechanics lift you onto their shoulders, spraying champagne that mixes with the dirt on your face, and your crew pours ice water over your head to cool you down under the hot stadium lights. You climb out of the truck, standing on the roof, as the fans wave flags and light red flares under the stadium lights, filling the air with thick smoke. 2 years later, you retire from professional competition. You walk away from the travel schedule, the constant noise, and the pressure of maintaining a multi-million-dollar team seeking the quiet of a normal life at home. Years later, you stand at a quiet fairground on a cold evening. You lean against a metal fence watching a young kid load an old monster truck onto a flatbed trailer. His hands are covered in grease, and his shirt is stained with transmission fluid. Working to secure the tie-down chains in the dark, you do not say anything. You just watch the trailer drive away, the low rumble of the engine fading into the night. You remember the sound of the supercharger screaming in the stadium. You remember the smell of methanol, the blinding dirt clouds, and the feeling of absolute control at 40 feet in the air. You realize that the glory was never in the trophy. It was in the process. The late-night shock rebuilds, the spotter's voice in your headset, the close racing battles, and the quiet satisfaction of controlling 12,000 pounds of steel under pressure. You watch the young driver complete his turn, the truck kicking up a cloud of dust. You walk back to your car, finally at peace, ready for the silence of the road ahead.